The Fragment Fusion event for Ishiyama is live in-game, and I believe that every player in Raid should be pursuing this fusion, but it's not for the reason you think. So in today's video, I'm going to explain that statement. I'm also going to give you my champion review for Ishiyama, and then finally, I will present my no-fail fusion plan for those of you who are, in fact, pursuing this fusion. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Let's start by taking a look at Ishiyama the Immovable. He is a Spirit Affinity Legendary, HP-based champion from the Shadowkin faction. And taking a look at the aesthetic, I really like the look of this guy. I think he is a cool-looking champion. But even if he's not like the coolest-looking champion, the thing I appreciate here is he is completely unique to Raid. Nobody has a face like this in Raid. You can see the scarring on his face. His eye has clearly been injured and it's drooping. His armor, he is definitely a Shadowkin faction member, but no other Shadowkin has armor like this, so you're not going to confuse him with anybody else. And then he has literal fireballs on a chain as his weapon. You can't go wrong with fireballs. That's awesome. So I appreciate that many years into its development, Raid is still trying to improve the iteration here of their champions. It's really difficult, I think, to create a completely unique looking champion in a game that's got 800 champions, especially if you look at the history of Raid, where they used to just reskin champions in order to create new champions. There are a lot of old school champions who just look like other champions. This is not the case here. Literally looks like no one in the game, and I love that. All right, let's take a look at the stat pool. HP pool of 22.8 is really solid. That's well above average for HP-based champions. It's not god tier. It's not in the upper echelon of HP pools, but it's very solid. He's going to be tanky. He's going to hit hard with this HP pool. You pair it with that defense, 1167. Again, I would say this is just maybe around average or slightly above average for HP-based champions. But you want to remember, this is an HP-based nuker, not just an HP-based champion. Some HP-based champions are more supportive in their roles, and this guy is a damage dealer, and yet he has a decent defense number as well. So he's going to be a very tanky damage dealer, which I kind of love personally. Speed is pretty average. The resistance and accuracy, great. Not necessary, but great. And by the way, if you don't know, this is how you can determine that he's an HP-based nuker. You can see the crit damage. It's 63% crit damage. That is the starting crit damage for nukers. So if he were an HP-based support, he would probably have 50% crit damage here. It's just a little tidbit for you. Okay, let's take a look at the kit. The A1 Burning Comet attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit transfers a random debuff from this champion to the target. If this champion is under any debuffs when attacked, counterattacks with this skill. I kind of like this skill. It's low key. Doesn't feel overly powerful. I know that it hits decently hard. I've watched some other content creators who've used him on the test server. He's a pretty hard-hitting HP-based champion, so this A1 hits decently hard. But the thing here is the counterattack. He's cleansing himself with his A1, and anytime he has debuffs on him and he gets hit, he's going to counterattack and cleanse himself. So that's pretty cool. He's not going to get this counterattack if he doesn't have debuffs on, which is a little disappointing. It'd just be cool if he counterattacked with the skill when hit. But still, conditionally, it's a decent condition for cleansing himself, up to 2 debuffs per counterattack. His A2 is an AoE that books down to 3 turns and has a 100% chance of placing a fear debuff, a decreased crit damage debuff, and a decreased crit rate debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. These debuffs cannot be resisted by enemies who are already under 2 or more debuffs. These debuffs are strange, but there's a good thing in this skill. I want to just talk about this briefly, which is that he is a nuker. And for most nukers who bring debuffs, you need to build them with accuracy. You do not need to build Ishiyama with accuracy. If you have setup champions and you've speed-tuned a team so that there are going to be debuffs on your enemy before he goes, then these debuffs will not be resisted. Now, if this nuke is just hard enough hitting that it nukes out a wave or, an arena opponent or whatever, great. But if you have a grindy, long grindy, kind of fight where you need these debuffs, or these debuffs are going to be beneficial, then hopefully you've set him up with other champions, and then you don't have to worry about accuracy. You literally don't have to worry about accuracy. And in fact, there's another thing that's going to show you that you don't have to worry about accuracy on this guy. So now we go to the A3, which attacks one enemy. We'll ignore 25% of the target's defense. That's always good. We'll ignore 50% of the target's defense instead if the target is under 2 or more debuffs. So again, if you have a setup, you can just go right to the A3 if you want, or you can place these debuffs if you can, and then you can go to this ability, and you're going to ignore 50% of the target's defense. Anytime you can ignore 50% of the target's defense with the skill, you have a chance to ignore 100% of the target's defense, because you can build ignore defense into the gear. The gear can give you additional ignore defense. And then you could also have ignore defense from masteries. So you can ignore another 50%, actually more than 50%. So if you can do the 50%, you can ignore 100% of the target's defense, which will do crazy damage against everybody, basically, including bosses. So I don't think this guy is only a PvP champion. I think he can be used in PvE, and he'll actually do pretty well with his A3. And then, of course, this places a block damage buff on this champion for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. It's kind of an interesting ability that feels more like PvP to me. Now, he also has a passive. Whenever an enemy resists a debuff attempt from this champion, the next debuff placed by this champion cannot be resisted. It's weird. I know it's weird. You have an arena nuker. Normally, you think of an arena nuker who just wipes out an enemy, right? This guy is built to last. He's an HP-based damage dealer. Remember that HP-based damage dealers are the tankiest damage dealers, not defensive-based damage dealers. There are so many ways to ignore defense in this game, just like his A3, right? Like, he will crush a defensive-based damage dealer who focuses on defense. But he could easily have over 100k HP, and that's always going to be tricky to work through, especially if you're trying to ignore defense, and he doesn't have any defense. He doesn't care about defense all that much. He's going to just have a massive HP pool. So I think that he could be really hard to kill, and simultaneously, he's going to be doing pretty good damage against everybody because he can ignore defense. And then on top of everything, each debuff placed by this champion increases their max HP by 3% up to 30%. And that's going to persist across rounds. So if you build him with 100k HP, he could get to 130k HP. It's going to make him hit harder and be even harder to kill. Okay, so finally we have the aura HP on all battles, 28%. Where's the value in this guy? Well, I think that you want an HP-based nuker. Everybody wants an HP-based nuker. There are only a few really good ones in the game. I think he's not going to be top 3 or top 5, maybe, but he might be just outside that group. He might be the 6th or 7th best HP nuker in the game. That's certainly nothing to shake a stick at. That's a solid nuker. But here's the twist. I think this guy is going to be one of the hardest to kill nukers in the entire game. I think he's going to be incredibly difficult to kill. I think he's going to be incredibly difficult to kill because he's got this passive that's going to increase his max HP. He's going to have crazy max HP. We're talking about maybe close to Mountain King HP at the end of it. So remember when I said his HP pool wasn't crazy? But if you stack it 30% more, it actually kind of gets bonkers, right? He has this block damage buff, so if he can kill a target, and this A3 is going to kill targets. You're going to get a block damage for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Then he's decreasing crit damage and crit rate of enemies plus fearing them, right? And then finally, he's cleansing debuffs from himself. So even if you get a decreased defense or a weaken on him or something, he's just going to ditch those and he's going to drop them on other opponents. So I think for modes where you want survivability in a team, and I hate champions like this in some ways. I love the concept of it, but I hate him in practice. He's going to be in 3v3 arena. He's going to be in classic arena. He's going to be in siege. He's going to be built into teams that emphasize his survivability. You're going to pair him with UDK. You're going to pair him with Duchess. You're going to pair him with Odin. You're going to pair him with other champions that maximize his survivability from other skills in other ways. And then basically this guy will just eventually chew through the enemy because he's going to hit decently hard and he's going to hit harder the longer the fight goes on. That's what I think he does. That's what I think he does. Now, who needs this guy? I don't know. That is entirely up to you. We'll talk a little bit more about why you should pursue this fusion in the next little bit. But, as far as like what's the optimal roster, what's the optimal account that needs this guy, I'd say, hey, if you need a nuker in the Shadowkin faction, certainly go for it. He's not as good as Harima, but he's a very good AoE-based nuker. He's going to do decent boss damage. He could work in Doom Tower. He could certainly work in faction crypts. He's going to be helpful in Centranos. It's another reason why you should consider using him. But yeah, I think he's going to be solid. I think he maybe is being undervalued a little bit by the CC community, and as a result, people are saying, oh, this is an easy pass, easy pass, easy pass. He's not a good champion. He's trash, he's trash. He's not trash. He's not close to trash. He's actually a very good champion. I would say he's better than the average legendary. I don't think he's God tier. I want to be clear. I don't think he's S tier. But I think he might be an A tier champion. And if you are earlier in the game, he's going to feel like an S tier champion. And if you're at the end game, you might feel like a B tier champion. That's fine. That's fine. But I actually think there are going to be some places where you're going to get a lot of value out of this champion. So if you have the resources and you don't have to stretch too hard, I highly recommend considering this fusion. So now let's go look at the calendar for this fusion, because this is where I really want to make an argument for everybody to actually, regardless of what I just said there about how good this guy is, for everybody to pursue this fusion. Now here we are on the Ishiyama Fragment event calendar, and as you can see, we have gone back in time to the middle of 2024. This is exactly what Fragment event calendars and fusion event calendars used to look like in the middle of last year, before we started to do special events like Heroes Paths and Decks of Fate and stuff inside of fusions. So as you can see, 16 events, just like we classically had. There are 130 total fragments, 20 of which are available through tournament leaderboards. And so you can see we didn't have that last month, but now we've got the tournament fragments back. Again, we don't count on getting any of those fragments because only 2 people from each tournament get those fragments. So we really have 110 fragments available to us. And as you can see, we have a Summon Rush and a Champion Chase. Welcome back, Champion Chase. We haven't had one of those in a little while. And so you can't skip either of these events. You need at least 5 fragments from each of these 2 events. So let's say you get 5 fragments from the Summon Rush, then you get all 15 from the Champion Chase, and that means you've skipped 10 from the Summon Rush, and those are the only 10 you can skip. You could, of course, complete both of the Shard events, and then that would allow you to skip 10 fragments elsewhere, and we'll talk about that. Now, the second reason that I think everybody should pursue this fusion is because it is a fragment fusion. Fragment fusions don't come along every month. I think everybody should probably pursue every fragment fusion that there is in the game. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. Let's go back to the game, and I want to show you Maud, right? We've got Maud here. Now, Maud is a legendary champion that you can get. She's decent as a champion, but she takes a while to get. And the only way you can get her is by turning in fragments from past fragment fusion events. Now, these could be fragments from a hybrid fusion event. So if there are epic fragments that you pick up in a hybrid fusion, you can turn those in, or you can turn in the legendary fragments. So here's the thing. Even if you don't like Ishiyama, you could pick up 110 fragments, or you could pick up 95 or 80 or 70 or whatever it is that you want to do. And then you can turn these into Maud chests. Now, just so you know, in addition to the Maud fragments that you pick up, there are other rewards here. You can get 4 and 5-star chickens. You can get epic and legendary skill tomes. You can get barrels and feasts. It is worth pursuing fragment champions, fragment fusions, for their fragments, even if you don't like the champion. And that's true whether you're an early game player or mid game player, late game or end game. It doesn't really matter. If you don't have Maud, even if you, it's not really that you care about Maud. You care about these chests. You want the rewards from these chests in addition to Maud. Okay, so I think that's one of the reasons why you should definitely pursue this. In addition, remember, if you complete this champion, you can leave him here in the fragment collector, just like I've left, stock here, just like I've left, a lot of these other champions. And you can use these as resources during PRCVCs, like the one we've got coming up tomorrow, right? So I'm going to be pulling Lamasu. She's going to get me a whole ton of points for my PRCVC this week. And that's why I've been holding on to her. I only got her like a month ago. I kind of forgot to pull her during the last PRCVC. And so she is here for this one. So, but, I've got Freya. I could collect Freya, or I could turn her into mod chests. And that's what I'm going to, think about. I could do with Ishiyama as well. So even if you don't want the champion, there is value in collecting as many of his fragments as you can reasonably get. So again, going back to the calendar, let's talk about this as well, because we're going to create the no-fail fusion plan. But the interesting thing here is I'm really of a mind, as a free-to-play player, I'm really of the mind these days that, again, all of us, every single one of us should be pursuing fragment champions. Anytime there's a fragment event calendar, first of all, it's an easy event. It's a really easy event. And you want to do a lot of the things that the fusion event is like telling you to do anyway. But in addition, I've come to realize that fusions are where the best resource value is in the game. Without fail. Without fail, every single fusion, whether it's a fragment event or a classic fusion or a hybrid fusion, every single fusion event has the best value in the game, because this is where you are guaranteed triple and quadruple dips for your resources. And that's almost never true outside of these fusion events. You can get sextuple dips here during this fragment event. It's insane. Just let's look at it right now. So today is Monday, May 5th. It's going to be pretty late. Maybe you see this video on the 6th. But you shouldn't be starting this fusion until the 6th anyway, because this is when the Dungeon Divers event opens. So here you have a Dragon Tournament, Champion Training, and Dungeon Divers. If you have a solo champion or a duo champion that can do, or a duo team, that can do stage 20 of the Dragon's Lair, you can get drops. That's your first dip, right? Doing the actual dungeon to try to get drops. By the way, there's a drop fever event for speed gear going on right now. So you probably want to be in the Dragon Lair anyway. It's only 2 times, not 3 times, but that's still better than nothing. So you get the drops, you get the points for the Dragon Tournament, right? So there are rewards in the Dragon Tournament. You're doing champion training with the same energy because you're using a solo champion or duo champion and you're putting food into that team. You're getting Dungeon Divers points for that Dragon Tournament. That's a quadruple dip. Just there. Then you get the fragments for the Fragment Champion. This is a quintuple dip for everybody in Raid. There is no reason not to do this. Even if you can't do the champion training, right? Even if you can't get a solo or duo or even trio team to get some food champions in there and get some XP. Even if you can't do that, you're still looking at a 4 times dip. Dragon Tournament, Speed Gear, Dungeon Divers, Fragments. There's no reason for anybody to skip these events unless you're just like, I need to just not play Raid for a while because I'm really burned out and I want to skip this like entirely. Not just skip the event, but I just want to stop playing, and barely log in. Like, okay, fine. Or if you're like, I have just a few resources and I want to I need to grind up Minotaur right now. Okay, but you're missing out on a great opportunity. And this is why I think everybody should be doing this. So again, fusion of, for those of you pursuing the fusion, no fail fusion plan, this is what you want to do. That Dragon Tournament should go into this Dungeon Divers. I believe that this Ice Golem Tournament should probably also go into this Dungeon Divers. You're going to overlap right here. You can see for a day. This is 2K energy. This is 2K energy. All 4K can go into the 5K energy of the Dungeon Divers event. So you only need 1,000 additional points for the Dungeon Divers. Now, the Classic Arena is easy. I'm not going to worry about that. The Spider Tournament, okay, this Spider Tournament will go into this Dungeon Divers right here. So again, you're going to get 1 day of a Spider Tournament to put into this Dungeon Divers. Now, here's the thing. You could overspend on the Ice Golem Tournament or even save You could overspend on the Dragon Tournament if you want, if you're going for speed gear. That's not bad. Maybe overspend on the Dragon Tournament. And then for the Ice Golem Tournament, you could hold on to it because this also overlaps, right, for a day with this Dungeon Divers event. So you're either going to overspend on the Dragon Tournament or you're going to overspend probably on the Spider Tournament. And that's what I would recommend. The Spider Tournament is the best tournament to overspend on because you get the most silver. You get the most silver. The Dragon Tournament would be very good as well because of the drop fever event for speed gear. So if you're looking for speed gear, overspend there. So decide where you want to put the Ice Golem energy. You could split it up. You could do one or the other. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Ice Golem into the first event, and then I just need 1,000 extra energy, and I will probably just spend it on the Dragon Tournament. So I'll do 3K here instead of 2K. Okay. Now I'm going to do all 5K energy of the Spider Tournament here, and I'm going to do it with a solo champion because I've got Eric's, and that's going to get me a whole bunch of champion training points as well. And then I'll do the rest of the champion training in the tavern. So for me, this shouldn't be too bad. If you need to do some campaign, this is where you're going to do the campaign because that's going to give you Dungeon Divers points as well. So you'd basically want to do that here. But again, there's a second Dungeon Divers that starts right here. So just don't do campaign in this blacked out area. Okay. You can do campaign in the first half. You can do campaign at the very end, but don't do campaign in the middle because then you're not getting a double dip, right? Here, remember that gear that drops during campaign actually gives you Dungeon Divers points. I would recommend setting up a little bit, like if you're doing campaign, at least set up a little bit so that you don't have to go crazy in the last 24 hours because you might not have enough time. You don't want to run out, So at least set yourself up with the Spider Tournament with that first half of the champion training. And then here, if you have to finish it off, just make sure you're going to have the playtime to do that. The Fire Knight Tournament obviously goes into the Dungeon Divers. So between the two, you can spend a lot. You're probably overspend here. I'll probably do something like 4K in the Fire Knight Tournament. I expect this to be a drop fever event as well, probably for Savage Gear. We just had one for Regen, so I think it's more likely to be Savage Gear. So you could consider that might be worth overspending in the Fire Knight Tournament. And then Classic Arena Takedown is easy. The gear enhancement events, remember, it's 20 million per. So I'm going to do all three. And you're going to get plenty of silver if you're overspending on this Spider Tournament. That's not going to hurt. So as long as you can complete the first one, the second and the third ones shouldn't be too tough. You're going to be overspending on the Spider and the Fire Knight Tournament. That's going to give you the silver that you need. So usually I like to start a fusion event like this with somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 25 million silver personally. But if you have 5, you're probably fine. And you could even stretch that. There are ways to stretch that if you're an experienced player or if you just know the tricks. But I would highly recommend, like if you have, let's say 10 or 15 million today, that's okay. That's okay. You have 25 million today, you're fine. Just don't spend outside of these gear enhancement events. You don't want to be wasting a lot of silver outside of those events. Now, the 2 events that are left, let's go ahead and erase all of this. So the 2 events that are left are the Summon Rush and the Champion Chase. Oh, before I forget, I do want to mention, Tuesday to Thursday, this is PRCVC. So that actually would reinforce the idea that you probably want to overspend in the Dragon Tournament, or maybe at the very end of this Ice Golem Tournament, you could spend a whole lot in the Ice Golem Tournament, but likely you want to do that, right? You want to overspend in this Dragon Tournament just to be aware that that's what you want to do. That's just a thought. Okay. So Summon Rush and Champion Chase. This will be a 2 times weekend. I expect this to be 2 times Voids. That is the shard that we have not had the 2 times for the longest time. We had Sacreds. It just had Ancients. We had Sacreds before that. So it should be Voids. They could always throw us a curveball. It could be Primals. It could be all shards. They could give us Sacreds again. But I'm expecting 2 times Voids. That's good for a Champion Chase because each Void is guaranteed to give you at least 50 points towards the chase because a Void rare is 50 points. And if you get an Epic, it's 350. If you get a Legendary, it's 650. So you get extra points, although you probably have fewer shards. And then remember, of course, you can use your fragment champions here. If you're going to, I'm going to use some fragment champions here. I'm going to get Lamasu just because I want to build her. And then I could like gear her up during the champion training tournament because you get points for books and stuff like that. But, you know, if you wanted to save some fragment champions for the champion chase tournament, if you're worried about your resources, if you don't think you have enough void shards, you could certainly do that there. Again, remember, I recommend always pulling your void shards during 2x events. I don't save them for anything else, and I don't pull them for anything else. And that's just, it served me very well, and I've done videos on this before, but it's easily the best value for void shards for free-to-play players. So pull them during this weekend once the champion chase tournament starts. And even if you go past, like even if you go beyond the 15 fragments, that's fine. Like just pull all your void shards during this event. It's going to be fun. You're going to like it. That means we only need 5 of the 15 fragments here for the summon rush. The first 5 fragments, unfortunately, will probably take between 5 and 6 sacreds. Might even take more than 6 sacreds worth of points. So I tend to do the rest with mystery shards or maybe a 10 pull of ancient shards. We just had a 2x ancient shard event. Ancient shards are at their lowest value right now. So go ahead and pull them for the summon rush if you need them. But otherwise, hold on to your primals, hold on to your voids. Don't pull those during the summon rush. Should be done with mysteries, sacreds, and then ancients if you have to. So I would definitely go for the 5 points here. Skip the other 10 points. Unless you're a spender and there's a really good progressive that you want to pursue. And then you can go ahead and get the 15 fragments here. And that would allow you to skip up to 2 other events. You could skip like the champion training for 10 points. Or you could skip like the gear enhancement or the dungeon divers or whatever it is that you want to do. So just be aware that that's the possibility. Okay, so I think that is it. I don't think I missed anything. There is the no-fail fusion plan. Again, I highly recommend everybody go for this fusion, even if you're not going to get all 100 fragments. It's really easy. It's really easy with no shard events at all. If you don't want to pull your 2x voids, you don't want to do the summon rush. Right? You can still get 80 fragments. You can still get 80 fragments just by doing everything else. Now, if you want to drop the gear enhancement events out, you can still get 65 fragments. I think you should be doing gear enhancement only when you're getting extra points for it. So think about this gear enhancement event. This is during a PR CVC as well. You definitely want to be doing that gear enhancement. You're going to get, that's the best time to roll your gear. You've got a gear enhancement event and a PR CVC. That's a huge advantage. You definitely want to do this one. But you could potentially skip the other 2, right? If you're not going for as many fragments as possible, if you want to save up your resources for next month's fusion, you could certainly do that. But I think everybody should do basically, let me count these out. Everybody should do this event, everybody should do this event, this event, this event. So those are 4 events everybody should do. Everybody should do the Classic Arena takedowns, both of those. I think everybody should probably do the Spider Tournament and this Dungeon Divers. You could potentially skip this champion training. That's okay. And then probably you're going to want to do the Fire Knight because of the Drop Fever event. And that means this Dungeon Divers as well. And yeah, then you're basically skipping the Summon Rush, these 2 gear enhancements, the champion chase, and maybe this champion training. I guess you could also skip the Ice Golem if you want, but again, you could put the Ice Golem into the Dungeon Divers, especially if their Drop Fever event is for a good set, which I don't know what that would be, but maybe Cursed set or something. So potentially that one as well. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 fragments. Everybody should be getting at least 60 fragments towards their mod chests from Ishiyama. But again, you could go and do all 110 fragments, which is probably what I'm going to do. Get the champion, get the extra 10 fragments, wait to summon the champion until a PR CVC or a champion chase for a later fusion, then pull the champion, then turn the 10 fragments into 2 mod chests and get the maximum value with the quintuple dips and the triple dips and all the stuff that you're getting during the fragment event calendar. That's free-to-play life right there in a nutshell. Get everything you can for your resources. Okay, a longer one today. I'm sorry I had so much to cover, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Have I convinced you to at least pursue some fragments for Ishiyama, or maybe even get the champion himself? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for hanging out today. I have been Cole Red. I will see you in another video soon.